Hi, this is Jim Hunt, Communications Manager at Sustainable CT and host of The Impact, the Sustainable CT podcast. As many of you may have heard by now, we'll be introducing our very first campaign for a Sustainable CT on November 13th. Now, this is really huge. For the first time, we'll be reaching out directly to our friends, partners, and to you, to people all across Connecticut who care deeply about making our state a more sustainable place to live. We're asking for your help. We're asking you to be part of the action, to have a personal impact. In the short time we've been at this, Sustainable CT has grown to include 138 participating towns. That's over 90% of the state's population, by the way, 70 certified municipalities, and 16 climate leaders. We've sponsored 88 fellowships for Connecticut college students. Our Community Match Fund has supported 348 local projects from Greenwich to Thompson and Stonington to Falls Village. And we've invested more than $4 million in community. And we're just getting started. Please join us in fostering a connected, inclusive, and sustainable Connecticut by making whatever contribution you can afford. And get this, here's the really exciting part. Your contribution now will have twice the impact. Yeah. Thanks to a very generous donor, every contribution you make during our campaign for a Sustainable CT will be doubled. Yowza! So the action you take now through the end of the year will have twice the impact on Connecticut's future. Look, we're building the Connecticut we want to see together. This is our state, our program, our future. We can't do what we do without you, your passion, your creativity, and yes, your financial support. Together, we can build a Sustainable CT. The campaign for a Sustainable CT officially begins on November 13th and runs through December 31st. But hey, beat the holiday rush and make your tax-deductible contribution now. Just click on the green Support Us tab at sustainableCT.org. Come on, be part of the action. Have an impact. Give. Welcome, everyone, to the October 2024 edition of The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. For your edification, your enlightenment, and your entertainment, too. I'm Jim Hunt, Communications Manager at Sustainable CT, so if you're looking for someone to blame for this podcast, well, you can blame me. But remember, this is never a one-way conversation. We always want to hear from you for our edification and enlightenment. Drop us a note, won't you? To info@sustainableCT.org. The Impact is brought to you in part by the Common Sense Fund. The Common Sense Fund supports environmental change through education, policy initiatives, promotion of carbon-free energy sources, and stewardship of our natural resources. The fund promotes action both on the environment and in the arts that is practical, creative, and addresses social needs, and we are oh so glad they do. Visit them at commonsensefund.org. Remember, Sustainable CT is independently funded. We don't have a magical rainbow unicorn money tree, no sir. But you can be a Sustainable CT sponsor. Find out how at sustainableCT.org. We are very happy to have Carl Fortuna with us today. Carl is the long-running first selectman of the beautiful town of Old Saybrook, a town that has recently achieved gold certification in the Sustainable CT program, it should be said. And he has so many other irons in the fire, it's hard to name them all. He was recently made chair of CIRMA, the Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency. He serves on the board of multiple organizations of note and impact, including the Materials Innovation Recycling Authority, MIRA, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, that's CCM to you and me, and the Council of Small Towns, COST, and we'll all be going to that conference next week. He also serves as the treasurer for the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments, or RiverCog. Carl is a graduate of Fordham Law School. Go Rams! And he did his undergraduate study at Boston College, the home of Baldwin, the mighty eagle, as I understand it's Baldwin, right? And we are very glad that he's taken a little time out of his busy schedule to chat with us today. So now that we've got all that out of the way, Carl, how are you? And welcome to the show.
I'm well. Thank you, James. Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. It's a mouthful, I know, to say all those acronyms and then
I managed to get through it, didn't I?
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah, I know. Over the years, I've just attached myself to a few of these organizations, and I love them all. They're wonderful.
Yeah. You've been involved in town politics and governance for long time.
Yeah.
13 years is a good run, right? I mean, in terms of local governance, you must take some satisfaction in the fact that your community has such faith in you, right?
Been very fortunate. Yeah, I mean, it's a great community. I'd like to think, when I say we are doing a good job. I mean the we, because it's all about your staff. We have hired some really wonderful people, and they tend to make me look a lot better than what I am. And that includes the folks who helped us achieve gold certification. They were very good, and I'm going to mention their names at some point. But yeah, the 13 years as first selectman, which is 7 terms, 2-year terms. And then before that, 11 years as Board of Finance chair. So, been involved in local government basically since 2000. Looking back on it, it's hard to believe, time goes by, right?
Right. Sure. I think of all the changes, just technical and political and otherwise, that have occurred in that time frame. It's kind of astonishing. Now, how did you first get involved? You just one day decided I want to be a part.
No.
How did you get started?
So I moved to Old Saybrook in 94, and my family's from Middletown, and my dad was a lawyer, very involved in Middletown politics.
Oh, okay.
And it was my dad, basically. He said, look, I'm sure your local town committee would love to have I was young at the time.
We all were once.
Yeah, I know, right? They'd love to have a young lawyer involved in their local town committee. You should just go to them and say you want to be involved. And that literally is what happened. I went to the local chairman and said, I'm willing to do something. And it started with our Water Pollution Control Authority, and shortly thereafter morphed into Board of Finance and chair of the Board of Finance. And then when the former first selectman decided not to run for another term in 2011, they approached me. It may have been a little sooner than I wanted to come out of full-time law, but I was looking to do something a little different at the time. And so serendipitous, I guess you could say. Timing worked out. It's been a good run. And like I said, I feel very fortunate to have had the good people, great community, and just good success. And I mean, it's a job, as you know, Jim. I mean, good days, bad days, right? But it's been fun. Get a lot of good stuff done.
Now, are you still practicing law on the
side? Very little. I might go to state closing here and there. Honestly, there isn't the time.
Yeah. You have to be able to focus on what you can't split your attention.
Not only that, our town charter requires the first selectman to devote his full-time duties to the role of first selectman, and night meetings that come along.
Sure.
And even weekends, when there's events that I attend. So the answer is no. I still have my law license, but I really don't practice law.
Presumably you'll go back to it at some point. It's something that you'll
maybe not. But I will say this, and I've said this to many people along the way. I probably used more of my legal mind in this job than I ever did as a lawyer, because as a lawyer, you tend to do maybe 2 or 3 things. And in the role of first selectman, it's labor law, administrative law, land use law, just contracts that come across your desk that I don't act as lawyer to the town, obviously, but there are certain documents that I can look at and say, this is fine. And I don't pass on to a lawyer. But I would say I'm probably been exposed to way more areas of the law than I ever was as a lawyer, which I love. It's been...
I can understand. My brother was wills and estates attorney, and they asked him, and he was very active in his community. And they said, well, you should run for the select.
He said, that's too much of the law. He was a very focused lawyer, very good at what he did, but God deceased, God love him. But he focused on, like you say, just a couple areas of the law, did it very well. And if he had to expand that too much, he felt as if he couldn't do it.
And if you love it, that's great. And if you love it, that's great. I had my ups and downs, and I've really found this to be quite fulfilling, which is kind of nice. So we'll just leave it at that.
It's got to be. I mean, to be able to have an appreciable, immediate effect on your community, and a positive effect on people around you in that community for so many years, that's got to feel good. Like, to get up every day. I can see how it can be some days are more difficult than others.
Yeah, it's a job. I go to work every day, and, there are days when you wonder why you're doing it, and then there are days when you know why you're doing it.
Sure. Well, you've also, as we've mentioned, you serve on these myriad commissions, boards, MIRA and CCM, RiverCog. They're all important. We deal with them in our own way as well. So I know how important they are and what they're doing. But is there any one of them that you feel is, special to you, important to you, either personally or in terms of its impact?
So I think those are two different things. In as far as impact, I would say MIRA, Materials Innovation Recycling Authority, and this, of course, is a little bit of the topic we're covering today, which is sustainability. And MIRA, Connecticut, and I've been saying this for 5 or 6 years. People are probably bored of me talking about it. Has a trash crisis that most people are not aware of. The crazy thing is we ship garbage out of state, a lot of garbage out of state. And think of the carbon footprint, sending bales of trash on diesel trucks, on tires that fall apart on the road to be buried in Ohio.
That's just embarrassing.
It sure is. But isn't it a little incomprehensible?
On every level, it's bad.
Right?
It's just really, it's embarrassing too.
And I'm not here to tell you I have a solution to that. And I'm not here to place blame on anybody. I think we certainly can divert and compost more, but that's not for everybody. I don't think that's our way out of it. I think there may be some new technology out there that is more our way out of it. But what I will say is I feel like the state is not investing, and I'll leave it at that. The state is not investing in the future. And I've said this in public meetings at the MIRA board. I think every day that we don't invest in a future solution, which is probably some sort of newer technology, we're 10 years away from actually that solution. And we will ship garbage out of state. And when those landfills either fill up, which they probably won't right away, or start charging more, the cost of garbage is going to increase. Quick example, and then we can move on. The town of Old Saybrook was paying probably $60 to $65 a ton to rid itself of its trash 6-7 years ago. We're paying $140 a ton now. And that price is going up.
Yeah.
That from an impact, a statewide impact, I'd like to think that I've been involved in that conversation. I don't know that I've made a difference because really MIRA is in demise right now and won't exist probably within a year. But from a local level, from a regional level, I'd like to think that I've actually raised the awareness of the issue. And locally, we are doing a few more just steps to reduce the amount of tonnage that we create at our transfer station, and hopefully communicating that message to residents. And from on a personal level, I happen to love insurance. It was my first job out of law school. I love CIRMA, Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management. They're a wonderful organization. They insure the liability, auto, property, workers' comp for 300 public entities in the state of Connecticut. It's just a great organization, and I'm really pleased that I'm as involved as I am in that organization.
You love insurance. Not everybody says that.
I've always had a little bit of a quirky interest in it. So I know that that will put people to sleep if we stay on that. So we're just
somebody's got to
remember that.
Good.
And we'll talk about some other things.
Just on the point of MIRA, though, I mean, we deal with that. That's one of our greatest concerns, the garbage crisis in Connecticut, and we approach it. Our small way of approaching it is we hope, collectively big, saying, if every town, as you pointed out, can deal with this, reduce the tonnage, reduce the footprint. If every town takes that approach, we're going to have a pretty large impact. But when the incinerator shut down, it took a bad situation and just blew it up. When the Hartford incinerator shut down, I don't think anybody was prepared to fill that gap, and still had, right? I mean, that just increased the problem. They
haven't. And what you have also is other burn plants. And I'm not saying burn plants are good. Okay. They're better than they used to be. Yeah. And unfortunately, they are frequently located in environmental justice communities, right? So that's just the way they were cited. Let's not forget that the South Meadows plant was originally an Eversource coal plant. It wasn't just the MIRA plant. So, but reduce, reuse, recycle is a wonderful message, but I don't know if it's our way out.
Will it get it done? Yeah.
Yeah. So that is all. We do need a way to be self-sufficient in Connecticut with our trash and recyclables. And I don't know that we're going to get there in the next 10 years if we don't start paying more attention to it at a state level, even though it's wonderful that all our localities are doing their best.
That is the scary thing. And it is kind of depressing in some respects. So we work so hard to make that happen. And is it really having the effect ultimately that we want it to have? And I hear you. That can't be the only answer we have to this. There's got to be some.
And that's one man's opinion. There may be. I'm sure there's people who would disagree with some of the things I just said.
Well, that's what makes a horse race. Now, Old Saybrook has displayed some stellar performance in the Sustainable CT program, and I love talking about us. I like to get you folks on here and just talk about us. Well, you registered in 2018 and certified silver in 2020, and again silver in 2023, and then gold and climate leader in the spring of this year. And I've read the paperwork you guys did. You've done. We don't make this easy. It was quite an achievement, and and one of the important parts of doing this. Going on a bit about it. The gold towns in particular, we want to make sure that the things that you do and the paperwork you bring to it, you think that might be tedious, but what it does is it allows other towns to be able to replicate what you've done. That's really the gold standard, so that we can get other towns following your example. And you've done great work in that respect. Why did you want to get in with Sustainable CT certification in the first place? What attracted you to that?
So as you know, I'm very involved with CCM, and I know Sustainable Connecticut has a very good relationship with CCM. You've been at some of our municipal conferences. It's been promoted. And honestly, Jim, it seemed like a little bit of a momentum thing. Some towns did it, and other towns are like, oh, what are they getting that we're not getting? And it became, geez, maybe we should look into it. And we did. And as you said, it's somewhat work intensive. You have to have employees who have the time to dedicate to it. I have to, at this point, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the names of Lynette Wacker in my office.
Absolutely.
And Sarah McElwicky. So Sarah did a lot of work on this, and she did a lot of work getting us to gold certified. And my land use director, Christine Costa, basically, we used to come in and talk to me periodically and say, you're basically robbing me of an employee with this gold certification stuff. But the train had left the station, and here we are. So we've achieved it. We looked into it. We were very happy to get some positive recognition with the bronze certification. And then it's like, geez, maybe we can get the silver certification. And like I said, it almost becomes a little bit of a, once you get that, why not get the next level? The groundwork is laid. You have a lot of the information.
Yeah.
and you know the technique. And by the way, a lot of credit to Sustainable Connecticut. The folks there are very helpful.
They are, and I want to applaud them.
Yes.
You know, I work with a great group of people. I'm the communications guy. What do I know? But the folks I work with who do this, do the programming and actually support these towns are really magnificent. It's Inez Ortiz and Dorothy Piszczak and Jess, who is our new executive director, Jessica LeClaire, for years has been working with towns tirelessly. These people are just great. So my hats are off. My hat's off to them as well. I understand what you mean about that. You know, here I am the spokesman for this. They're doing yeoman's work to help these towns, and especially as you point out, we work a lot with small towns as well who don't have the resources, who don't have people on staff. They're all volunteers. They might have one or two people doing this who are volunteers. But we can make that happen. We have help. We have help with our own staff and also fellowships we bring in to really help these towns.
Even when you have paid staff, you
try to keep that
that is working at it. Sarah is a part-time. In fact, she's probably moving on to start her career in a different field, not in municipal government. But she was here, and she's just been great. And, you know, the program is so many things we do on a local level are nonpartisan, not bipartisan. They're nonpartisan.
Right. You hope they are. Yes.
What's that?
You think they are. You hope they are. Are they truly? Yes.
There's, you know, there's really nothing better, especially, you know, we're taping this and it's October 10th and we're staring down the barrel of a national election and a lot of local elections. But at a local level, there are so many great things we do that are nonpartisan, and certainly this is one. And, you know, it's not a Republican or Democrat ideal to become gold certified sustainable. It's just good policy in the town in which you live. And that's what I've tried to communicate to the folks that on our boards and commissions and publicly, that, hey, we put in LED streetlights after doing a lot of research on it, a lot. We leaned on Madison, Connecticut, actually. They had a volunteer group, and I got some great information out of them to make sure the lights weren't too bright. And, you know, that has saved us $100,000 a year.
There you go.
And it's more sustainable going forward. So there's been a lot of things we've done that just have been really good for the community, save money, but good policy as we move forward.
That is the approach we try to take with towns. We're all over the state, and we deal a lot with the different political parties and interest groups and economic interests. Everybody likes to save money. Saving energy is a good thing. These are good things. Everybody agrees with that kind of stuff, and that's really the approach we try to take with anyone who might be a little leery going in. Say, look, let's do some cherry picking, do the stuff you think you know will work for your town and save you some money. And, you know, that's how we try to get people on board too. Now, you touched on it earlier, but I'm fascinated because we like to believe we're great people. We do great things, having a big effect. What has this meant, practically speaking, for the town of Old Saybrook? I mean, you mentioned you saved some money on the street lights. Are there other quality of life issues that may have helped? I mean, why are we doing this?
Good question. So, you know, the Sustainable Connecticut, it's right in the word, right? Sustainable. And that includes all aspects of your community. It includes your business community. It includes the less fortunate in your community. It includes your shoreline. Yeah. And we particularly saw this in the pandemic, where we immediately reached out to folks who were struggling. We formed a group through communication locally that we raised a lot of money, and we were able to help some of those less fortunate in our community get back on their feet. It has helped us, honestly, reduce some of the tonnage at our transfer station. From a very practical point of view, we formed a waste and recycling task force, I think, probably in 2000, after we became bronze certified. And we have since implemented textile recycling, paint recycling, lots of different things that we weren't doing before. And by the way, with the money that we're getting from small bottles from the state,
Right.
we're now using that money for a composting program. So we have it's actually food recycling. We have Blue Earth, which is out of West Hartford, I believe, an organization out of West Hartford. And we have bins at our transfer station that people can bring their food waste, and Blue Earth will take it away. And I believe they then use it at Quantum Power,
Right,
to make biodiesel, I think, and power. I'm not sure what the actual end is, but there are so many things that we're doing that are part of the Sustainable Connecticut program that are just byproducts of thinking about, hey, what can we do to make our community more sustainable, more resilient? And those are just some of the things. So practically, I think it's better communication with our community, helping people learn new ways that they might impact the environment in a favorable way. Just a variety of factors. There's been so many things that have come out of this program that we're doing that are either ideas that came out of the program, or we're doing it because it's good policy and it's helped us with the program.
You know, we some towns we approach, we say, you're probably doing half of this stuff already, because it's just good practice. So yeah. I go, oh yeah, we can check off this and this and this and this, because we do that anyway. It's at least a start, if an entrance into it. And then they discover, yeah, there's a whole lot of things they can do that will have a practical, beneficial result on the ground.
And there are many things that you're doing, like you're saying, that get you that point, one extra point. And I heard that a lot from Sarah and Lynette. And in fact, just so you know, we have department head meetings every month. And at our last department head meeting, we had Lynette Wacker come in, who's been very involved in this program in our land use department. And she just said, hey, we want to maintain this gold certification. So over the next 2 years or so, as you see new regulations or new building codes or new anything you want to implement that you think might have an impact on our Sustainable Connecticut point system and maintaining gold certification, please bring it forward, and I'll give you a checklist of things that might fall into that category.
That's great. That's great. That's a great approach. It makes perfect sense. When there's always this balance. We give out points. We give out little plaques with you got the gold, the silver, the bronze, and that feels good. That feels nice. But that's not that's not what it's about, because we want to have an actual real effect on it. And that's why we make it difficult, challenging. It's a challenging program at the same time. So it's that balance. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we want to have a real positive effect on the ground, but you're also already might be doing some of these things and it will fit well into your town plan. So yeah, that's a great approach. How can we improve the program? You have any ideas for us? Because we're always looking to try to do that. And I know it can be a little bureaucratic, so don't be afraid to ding us for that. But any way to improve the program? It
is a very well thought out, well planned program. I truly believe that, and that has been my experience for the last 5 or 6 years, having been bronze, silver, and now gold certified. Has there been any thought to at the COG level, maybe involving, as I think we might want to talk about at some point, getting the COGs more involved regionally? So we have the Connecticut River right here, right? And we have a hydrilla, we have invasives that are water chestnut in there, and, sustaining the great resource that is the Connecticut River would be a regional effort, and maybe involving our COGs a little bit more than might be a good idea, even though I know the program itself is very much a town and city oriented program, but I think maybe involving the COGs might be something of interest.
That's a great idea. Part of what we do, we're town and city oriented. That said, one of our biggest the big push we make is for collaboration and regional collaboration. It's kind of woven into a lot of the action steps in our program, and the COGs are the natural repository for that, right? You're already regionally working together in that model. our fellows, the fellows that we have for the summertime are based in the COG system. So that's at least a connection we try to maintain. But you're absolutely right. We could probably do a lot more in just really making use of that resource. And the COGs are great. They're great people. And,
it's money and resources, of course, at the end of the day, right? So the COGs are going to say, well, are we going to have a person or more additional funding? But, the funding at the COGs has been pretty steady. And I just think even if it's not money, but it's just collaboration.
Yeah,
I do think there could be a little bit more done, because I just happen to know this effort with the Connecticut River and the water chestnut and the hydrilla is a statewide issue. Really, it's in lakes, it's in rivers. And if we want our waterways to be usable, fishable, water skiable, all these things, right? We need to keep them pollutant free, but also keep the invasives out as much as possible.
We'll return to our program in just a moment. You've been listening to The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. Hey, while you're out there tripping the web fantastic, don't forget to join us on Facebook for some fun and interesting stuff. Guaranteed safe for children and pets. Come on, be our friend, won't you? At facebook.com/sustainableCT. And we, like millions of others, have hopped on the Instagram Threads bandwagon at instagram.com/sustainableCT and threads.net @sustainableCT. And yes, of course, we're LinkedIn. Search for Sustainable CT from your LinkedIn page, and you'll find us right there, being all LinkedIn and media social. And if you're not yet a subscriber to Actions that Impact, the Sustainable CT newsletter, you could be missing out on some very important information to you, to your organization, and to your town. Accept no substitutes. Do yourself a favor and subscribe today. And you can do that where? At sustainablect.org, of course. And heavens, yes, you are invited to the 2024 Sustainable CT Awards celebration on Wednesday, November 13th. And we'll be honoring all of our 2024 certified towns and brand new cohort of climate leaders. We'll also be celebrating 5 years of community match fund success. 5 years, holy man. And what is very cool is we'll be doing all of this at the Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center, the Kate, in Old Saybrook. The Katharine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center is a nonprofit performing arts organization located in an historic theater on Main Street in Old Saybrook. Originally opened in 1911, the building is now listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Katharine Hepburn Museum, located on the first floor, is the only museum of its kind, honoring Katharine Hepburn, Old Saybrook's most celebrated resident. Exhibits feature costume and personal wardrobe items, photographs, home movies, awards, and other memorabilia. How can you beat that, really? Space is limited, so we encourage you to register today. Where else? At sustainablect.org. Your hard work and continuing support are of vital importance to us, so we look forward to seeing you at the Kate in Old Saybrook on November 13th.
Welcome back, everybody. We've been talking with Carl Fortuna. He's the first selectman of Old Saybrook. We're having a great conversation, and I wanted to make sure we got in some thoughts about what Old Saybrook has been doing in their work in achieving gold certification. And it from what I've read, and you can certainly add or subtract or correct me in any way, but you did an awful lot of work assessing climate vulnerability. And as a coastal community, you must feel particularly exposed to the effects of climate change, right? I mean, are there major ways that Old Saybrook is susceptible to climate change, you think? And what are the major steps you've taken to mitigate that?
Very obviously in-depth and complicated question. Climate change, as we just saw in the valley, in Naugatuck Valley, I think, is everywhere, right? Flooding's everywhere. Yeah. And as you saw, CCM released a report about flooding recently, and what can the state do in terms of infrastructure? What can the towns do in terms of infrastructure to try to mitigate the effects of climate change? And it's happening. We know climate change is happening. On the shoreline, there's, I think, a combination of effects going on. And you probably heard this. I mean, they say that the coastline is actually sinking a little bit, right? And there, in addition to that, there may be a little sea level rise. And whether you can measure the sea level rise down here or not, anecdotally, people will just tell me it's different than it was 25 years ago. There's just more flooding. So we are obviously seeking out grants as much as we can. What we get a lot, we have several beach communities. When I say several, more like 7, and they all want to save their own beach. And that is not
surprise.
Yeah. And I don't blame them. And they want to all save their docks and their this and that. And I think that, obviously that affects our grand list, and I'm all for it. But climate resilience is a regional issue. And I give my land use director, Christine Costa, a lot of credit, because we are out there right now working with Clinton, Westbrook, the borough of Fenwick, and the town of Old Saybrook, seeking out grants for regional planning on how we can become a more resilient coastline along the area, and not looking at, hey, if we deposit sand on this beach to make this beach look really good in 2025, what does that do to the beach over here? And you probably know this, when you remove jetties or install jetties or piers or anything, it can completely change the sand patterns 100 yards away and rob people of beach or deposit more beach. So it can cause all kinds of interesting issues when you start messing with the shoreline. So we also budgeted this year for fiscal 25, because there's so much matching money out there. You have to have money to get money. And we put $100,000 in a fund strictly for resilience. So when we are working on our next grant and it says you need $100,000 or $75,000 to get this $300,000 grant, we have the money.
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to have the money to get the grant. It's all about planning. Most grants don't cover planning. Most grants want to cover infrastructure. So you have to do the planning. The planning's expensive. We are doing a lot of planning with several consultants. As you know, we did a coastal resilience study several years ago. It was not pretty, I will tell you. We had GZA Consulting. It was a state grant we received for them to do this. And they gave us, hey, in 10 years, worst case scenario, 25 years, this is a worst case scenario or best case scenario. And it shows a lot of the town struggling with water issues.
I'll bet.
But as I say, it's not just Old Saybrook. It is regional, and it is in the center part of the state. When we get 3 inches of rain, or if you get a 100-year rainstorm every 10 years, more communities are going to struggle with getting rid of the water. And it caused a lot of damage. That storm that happened about 2 months ago I think it was Morris and Ansonia out that way.
I was talking to Giovanni Zinn, who's in New Haven, the city of New Haven. He's the city engineer, I guess is what they call him. He's, they're dealing with it in New Haven now. And you're right. He is adamant about the fact that this is not a city problem. This is a problem that is by nature, excuse the pun, a state problem, a federal problem, a world problem. This is a huge problem for everybody, and we've got to be able to bring all the resources that we have to bear on it. Old Saybrook can't be left to its own devices and, go ahead and fix your climate issues, Old Saybrook. That's not the approach that we need to take to this. It's got to be a more all hands on deck. If
we had $100 million lying around, we might be able to do that, but we don't. We have zoning regulations that are a little bit more strict also. One of the things we did, and I did it as first selectman at a town meeting because it's a town ordinance that we had to change, was we added an extra 2 feet of freeboard, and that helped us in our gold certification application. Somewhat controversial. 1 foot, I think, is more standard along the coastline, but this basically says if you're going to build a house in a flood zone, like along in a lot of the beach areas that we have, you're going to have a house go up a little bit. So you're going to have basically stairs going into your house. And The water needs to be able to flow freely if it has to come through vents, essentially, in the lower part of the house. And some of the builders did not like that because it's more expensive. But I will say this, when FEMA changes their maps again, those houses are going to be in a much better position, number one. Number two, it will help them with their flood insurance. If they live in a house with 2 feet of freeboard, and they can show that, their flood insurance is going to be a lot less than the house that doesn't have that. So these are things that our town has been doing along the way, not to achieve gold certification, just because it's where we live,
right,
and it's proactive.
Right. And it takes a considerable amount of front money to do some of this stuff. There's no doubt about that. And why you hope for more regional and state support, the federal grants, you know, the plus is at the back end where, like you say, with insurance and with, for that matter, survivability of the property. For heaven's sake, let's not forget the reason for doing this in the first place is not solely to save some money, though that's great. We're also trying to save the property. That would be very helpful as well. And all these places are vulnerable. Got to be kind of scary. We haven't had a major, I'm trying to think the last time we had a major weather event. It wasn't that long. It was, so I guess you would consider Superstorm Sandy was probably the last one.
Yeah, we had Irene and Sandy.
And Irene, yeah,
back to back in 11 and 12.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know that maybe we're due. I don't know. We're talking today as we've seen what Milton has done down in Florida, and it's just you don't even know what to make of it. It is shocking to have that double, that two for punch, one right after the other. I used to live down there myself, and I can tell you, a lot of people are not able to cope with, you live in a trailer home. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. So count our blessings that we're not in that for sure. Now, you guys also did a lot of work with brownfields around Old Saybrook.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about that.
We have an area of town that is actually Route 1. We call it Route 1 East. We have Route 1 that runs entirely through the town.
Right.
But it's Route 1 East, and it is an underutilized, a bit of an eclectic area with probably more than a few brownfields in there. When I first came into office, we immediately undertook a volunteer group to say, hey, what would we like this to be when it grows up? What are our hopes and dreams for this area? And we took what that group came up with and we applied for a state grant called the Brownfield Area Revitalization or Revitalization Grant. And we were one of only 5 towns to get it. And what we were able to do with that was hire a company called Civic Moxie, which is a bit of a conglomeration of trades and expertises. And they came up and said, hey, this is what we think you might be able to do. Housing, maybe some shops and restaurants here, and then maybe some industrial uses over here. And that was great. And then what we've done more recently is, we received a brownfield grant, assessment grant through the state for $150,000. And that focused on 9 pieces of property right in the center of Mariners Way that we'd like to see switch hands and get remediated. And there's been a confluence of events that have led to all those properties changing hands more recently, and they are now being renovated, some of them, and some will soon to be renovated. And the reason I bring that up is it is a key factor in making the whole area transform.
Right.
It is a 20-acre parcel right in the middle of a main drag. And when this 20 acres starts moving, I think there's going to be a lot more investment in the rest of it. Now, the confluence of events that have led to this is, number one, the town has more recently invested in a consultant to assist us with a market study. But number two, there happens to be a $1.3 billion federal project going on to replace the train bridge, the Amtrak bridge that runs over the Connecticut River. So there's some money coming in, and some folks are renovating those buildings right now for offices. That's okay.
That's huge. Yeah.
That was a building that wasn't occupied before, and now it's going to be up to code. It's going to have a new roof. And even when that Amtrak project is gone, it's going to be a very usable building. So we have focused on this brownfield area for 12 years now, and I am heartened that it is changing. Things take time, okay? Things take time. And whether it's an Amtrak project or whether it's a town invested project, like we're putting $250,000 in ARPA funds towards the redevelopment agency that we're going to form for Mariners Way. We're going to do that probably shortly into the new year. So we are really working on it. And I think that having the this property change hands, and also the efforts that we're going to put in through a volunteer committee with some seed money, I think it's really going to change the area. And we've done a lot of the groundwork, I guess, is the point that you were making. We've done a lot of the groundwork over the last 8 years to really tell people who might want to invest in the area, hey, this is what you're going to find, and we can then help you as you move forward. And as you know, the state has remediation grants every year that they put out a round of brownfield remediation grants. And what we intend to do is partner with some of these private property owners and say, do you need to remediate your property? Because if you do, we're willing to help you get that remediation grant at the state level so that you can make this property something that it isn't right now, that will be good for the town for the next generation.
Right. And you got to take the long view. It benefits 100%. Everybody, the environment, the economy, the local real estate. It benefits everybody, but you got to be able to take the long view on it. Totally understand that.
What we had was owners of these properties who just wouldn't sell them, and they finally sold them. And don't ask me why. But these properties have now changed hands, and that is step one.
Yeah. Let's turn to a happier note. The Kate in Old Saybrook. I want to talk about the Kate, the Catherine Hepburn Cultural Arts Center in Saybrook. I was just there yesterday, and I went down. We had to do some preliminary scouting for the event we're having on November 13th in Old Saybrook. We're having our annual awards celebration at the Kate. We're very excited about that. And I got to tell you, I didn't know I was going to mention this. I was there. It is a beautiful building.
Stunning.
That is nice. It's historic, it's folkloric, it has all those elements, but then the restoration of it was just done so well. And maybe because I'm an old guy and I love Catherine Hepburn, I mean, that whole element is just really unique and beautiful too. So the draw is amazing. The theater itself is just as a theater. I mean, if it didn't have anything else, if it just had the theater is top notch. It's a beautiful place. So tell me a little bit about that, Carl. What prompted that restoration? What were you thinking? How did that happen?
So I was not in the role of first selectman when it was renovated. However, it's an old building and it needs constant funding for infrastructure. We've done so much to the building over the last 10 years, but that was originally a theater, as you may know, over 100 years ago, and then it became town hall. And what led to it being restored to a theater is they built a new town hall because we grew out of the old town hall.
Right behind it. Yeah.
So now you have this new town hall, and you have this historic building, and there was bond money that was put into it. Local, obviously, other tax dollars were put into it. And there was a renovation in 2007. The theater opened, I think, in 2009. And I'll tell you, it is, you talk about the arts being an economic driver.
Right.
There's no question about it. So I come out of meetings on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night at 8:00. And when I see this part of Main Street loaded with cars, I'm pretty sure that the restaurants did okay.
Right.
And it's a very quaint theater, as you know. It's 300 seats approximately. They get about 70,000 people through the door every year. And they do multiple shows a day sometimes. So they might have a Met in HD, a Metropolitan Opera in high definition on a screen, which almost sells out the theater because some people love that.
I would go to that.
Yeah. And I went and saw the Bolshoi Ballet one time.
There you go.
And then they'll have a show that night. They get an amazing eclectic amount of acts that are from Irish folk bands to, cover bands. I saw Graham Nash there, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Graham Nash is a pretty big name, and he was looking for a show to do because there was an incident at one of his shows in Boston. He couldn't do it, and they booked him here, and I got to see Graham Nash.
Amazing for such a small,
amazing,
venue.
And they, culturally, they are so important to our town. And of course, you have the new museum, the Katharine Hepburn Museum, which was actually open during the pandemic.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it has not been there the entire time. So that is new. And then we've made so many changes to the theater itself. The lights are all LED on the inside. We have a new air conditioning system in there that need to be done. So it is, it's a great place. I'm thrilled that Sustainable Connecticut is coming here to do their awards program that day, because I think people are really going to love coming here. I'm going to give you one more stat about the Cape because I love bragging about it.
Sure.
20% of the 70,000 people that I quoted come from the town of Old Saybrook.
Okay.
And that tells you that they are drawing from all.
You're getting lots of visitors and lots of visitors. That's excellent. Yeah. Well, and when I went down there yesterday, it was a beautiful day, so it was a nice drive. And I hadn't been in Old Saybrook in years, frankly. And I realized I got to come here more often. This is great. And I went, and afterwards, I walked down the street, went to the Penny Lane pub and had lunch. And, it's a great experience there. And then I drove out to Fenwick because I hadn't been there before, just to see. But it's nice. It's beautiful out there. Yeah. It's a lovely town. And the fact that you have this cultural draw makes it very special. So
that is when the project was first being proposed back in 2005 or so, there were a lot of people saying, "What's a cultural arts center?" And thank God we did it. That's all I can say. Thank God it's here.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to get a lot of people going, "Huh? What?" It's some naysayers, some pushback, but that kind of stuff really is a magnet.
Yeah, it is. It makes a big difference.
Well, Carl, we are out of time, and it's been a joy. So thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We're looking forward to seeing you on November 13th. You're going to be there for us, right?
I most certainly will be there. And before we leave, I think Old Saybrook might have gotten the most points ever in your program, by the way.
You think so?
That's what I understood, that our gold application may have exceeded the points of any other community.
I will have to check that. You have me at a disadvantage. I should have known that coming into this conversation.
And one other thing.
And I'm going to have to go check that now.
We also got noticed as a climate leader. We also got the climate leader designation too.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. So you don't get gold without climate leader. You got to do all that stuff. Yeah.
I'm boasting. So
that's all right. Boast away. That is huge. And forgive me for not boasting as much as I should have.
That's quite all right.
All right.
That's what I do.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. As always, this program is recorded, produced, and copyrighted, by Sustainable CT. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, the Common Sense Fund. And thanks again to Carl Fortuna for everything he does to make Old Saybrook and the surrounding area and Connecticut a better place. And thanks to everyone for taking local actions that have a statewide impact.